So today we're going to talk about some juicy roster news that went down between Cloud9, because Cloud9 have released their IGL Rossi, and I thought I would just give some quick thoughts on the overall situation because it's quite an interesting situation. But quickly, let's just talk about Cloud9's offseason up to this point and how we got here. So Cloud9 last season didn't make it to any internationals, and so they decided to make a couple roster moves. They brought in Rossi to be their new IGL, and they also brought in Vic to be their new Smokes player, keeping in Oxy, Moose, and Zeppa, who are already on the roster, and keeping the coaching staff as well. And the first thing we saw them play in was the Sen City Invitational kind of thing, and it didn't go so well for Cloud9. It didn't do that well, but then they also competed at Red Bull Homeground, where it did go pretty well, and they actually did look significantly better and managed to make it to the grand final of Red Bull Homeground, just losing to T1 in the grand final. And in particular, Rossi, the player that they dropped, their IGL, was having a very good tournament and performing very, very well, which is why a lot of people were very surprised by this decision. And let's get into the why of this decision. First, let's read the statement that Cloud9 made. So, early today, Rossi was informed that he will not be continuing with him as part of the Cloud9 Valorant team, and that we will release him from his contract. After months of practice, including our bootcamp in Korea, the players and coaches informed Cloud9 management that they felt the team chemistry wasn't working, and his style of in-game leading did not mesh with how the team wanted to play. The decision was made unanimously by our players and coaches on the team. Rossi is a phenomenal player, as displayed at Red Bull Homeground, but ultimately it was not the best fit for our team. We wish him the best in future endeavors. But as I'm sure many of you are aware, these statements don't always hold the whole truth. And so really, to me, there's three main reasons why this might have happened, right? The first one is you can take the statement somewhat at face value, right? That maybe it was to do with the in-game leading, really not, meshing with the team and people not liking the direction that the calling was going in. But if you just think about that for a second, that doesn't really make much sense, because surely if you don't like the IGLing, if that's not what the team wants the IGLing experience to be, one, you would maybe just talk about it first. Two, you would maybe just change the IGL though, before cutting another player, right? And even if you think about that for a second, what this means for the other four players, imagine if IGLing really was the main reason that they got rid of Rossi. What that would mean for the other four players is that they would be willing to literally get rid of a guy and stop him from being able to play in tier 1 and have this opportunity, rather than just any of those four like step up and say, hey, don't worry about it, I'll try IGLing and we'll see how it goes, right? And I don't think the other players on Cloud9 are like terrible people who would do that. So to me, that just doesn't really make much sense. A second reason of why you might do this is one that Cloud9 are familiar with, of course, which is money, right? You might remember this video from when Cloud9 got rid of Ye and MC had a gun to his head here. This was something that happened before, but again, I think this is a different situation to Ye, where obviously Ye at the time was considered the best player in the world, and so probably had a pretty significant contract, right? That Cloud9 couldn't afford, essentially. I would doubt, I don't know, but I would doubt that Rossi, who's a good player, but I doubt he would have a contract so enormous that, they would have to get rid of him and that he wouldn't be replaced by someone on a, somewhat similar level contract. So the money situation, whilst it can be applicable to certain aspects, and this is Cloud9, so we shouldn't completely rule it out, but I do think that it's unlikely. Another reason that I think the financial aspect is unlikely, that unlike in the Ye situation where we kind of had a video from kind of the management team in general, this statement, I think is quite weird, because the org is very much wiping their hands of any part of this decision. They are very clearly saying, this was made by the players and coaches. We did not do this as the management team, right? We only did this because they really wanted us to, which, again, it's kind of like, it's interesting to me, because from the org's perspective, this is kind of like, if this goes wrong, you know who to blame. We didn't do this, they did this. But of course, the third reason is that maybe Rossi just really didn't get on with the other players. And that is mentioned in the statement as well, about team chemistry. Maybe that's the reason. And I'm just now going to play you this video of Oxy reacting to the news.
Guys, there's a lot to it, but I cannot explain it, not explain it. I can't like say it out loud, bro. That's just how it is, bro. Well, maybe I said not to put a pin message because I would just talk it, but I think it's fine. No need to explain it. We all know you're the mastermind. Yeah. You can't kiss him. I'm not kicking Rossi, dude. Oh, listen, bro. Why are you stream sniping me, Zexro? Okay, listen to me. Rossi is an insane player. There's other things that it just didn't work out with us. That's it. Like, he is insane.
Now, you can read into that however you want to, but I personally have nothing against Rossi, so I don't want to assassinate his character without ever knowing the guy. So I will just say that he was on T1 last year, and some of the T1 players acted very surprised, you know, that this happened. Perhaps suggesting that, you know, they don't think that Rossi is some awful guy. Because let's be real, if you did work with someone, and I have worked with some people that I really, really didn't like, and if I knew that they went somewhere else and got fired, I wouldn't be tweeting out a bunch of question marks, let's put it like that. I'd be tweeting out eyes emoji, right? There wouldn't be a lot of question marks in it. So, I just want to point out that, you know, Rossi probably isn't some terrible person, and also that sometimes you can get along with some people and not some other people, and that's a perfectly normal thing to happen. And really, I think the best overview we can glean from all of this actually comes from a former C9 player in Rooney for multiple reasons, because Rooney tweeted out this, that multiple teams have made some off-season decisions that community has declared was a terrible move. If you don't have an internal connection to a team, you have no idea what's going on. Stats don't mean anything when a team doesn't get along, share similar ideas. And this is very, very true, right? This is why it's hard to know who a good IGL is, who a good coach is, right? Maybe Potter is just sitting there with her feet up smoking cigars the whole time, right? We don't know. It's possible. Probably not the case, but it's possible, right? I will also say, though, that you're completely within your rights to overreact to this kind of stuff and go crazy about it, because that's what makes sports fun. And again, pro players, coaches out there, you need to understand you're in the entertainment business. You know, this is why you get paid. You want people to overreact and get emotional about this stuff, because that means that people care. And if people care, that means people will watch. And if people watch, that means you'll get paid. But there's also something in Rooney's replies later on that I think give us a good sense of why this whole thing really played out the way it did. Because, of course, this is not something any of us really want to see. It's happened kind of, you know, in a bit of a messy situation. There's been a lot of reaction, including this video. But let's read what Rooney said to this reply here, because this is someone just asking him, you know, about like his situation where he joined C9 and then was let go and then rejoined C9, right? And he replied this: "Don't want to comment on the current situation, but my departure was a rebuild that they didn't see me in until they realized what they were missing." And right there, I think you get a good sense of how Cloud9 is kind of run, that they, you know, maybe aren't looking at these kind of long-term visions of what they want to see, but it's more kind of short-term, like, hey, this isn't working, let's make a change, right? And that's how they are run as an org. Rooney basically said it right there with his comment, and that seems to be what's kind of played out here, that they tried something, it didn't work, and so they decided to make a change. Now, you could argue, one could argue, that maybe their trialing process and their initial roster construction, you know, they need to work on that, because this isn't an efficient use of time, you know, to make these changes at this time. You know, maybe you've made your org more unpopular by doing this, but if that's the way they run their org, you know, that's the way they run their org. And Cloud9 have decided to replace Rossi with Mitch. Now, Mitch was in tier 2 last year and was pretty good, I thought, and so probably deserved at least a chance in tier 1, and he's getting that chance. So that, in an essence, is a good thing, right? That Mitch is getting a chance to prove himself. You know, it does seem to be a bit of a prerequisite of Cloud9 that, you know, you've played on Cloud9 before to play for them. And Mitch is just another one of those examples. But I'm happy for Mitch, right? I think, you know, this is a deserved chance for him to prove himself at the highest levels. And so overall, obviously the situation sucks, right? It sucks for Rossi. I think that Cloud9's statement is not very good, if I'm being honest. Because this to me is, like, again, as the org, you should always want to take responsibility as the org, whereas this to me is them very much like somewhat throwing the players and coaches under the bus here, you know, and leading a lot of people to believe that, you know, the players and coaches have kind of snaked Rossi, which again is not really what you should ever want. As an org, you should be taking responsibility. You're the one that you know, should be taking any blame for any bad things that happen, not the players. You should be protecting players and coaches from that kind of thing, but that's a whole different story. So obviously, yeah, it all sucks, right? But the thing is that probably the secret truth of the matter is Rossi does not have to be a terrible person, but maybe just didn't get along with the C9 players. No one has to be a terrible person because of that. It can all be fine. They just didn't have a good working relationship until a change was made. This is all normal stuff. We can all hopefully chill and have a nice day.